Hi, my name is Daisy Dai. I am with Pacific Magazine and Berkeley Film Friends, and we are here with Enugene Chung and Jimmy Maidens from Penrose, which is a startup in San Francisco that does augmented realities and virtual worlds. So hi guys, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us. Do you feel like your Haas major prepared you for the real world?
I think what was great about it was it afforded the opportunity to actually explore a lot of the great things that Berkeley had to offer. It's got a great PEIS program, it's got a great history program, great math program, a great computer science program. I remember some of my favorite courses were just sort of seeing the breadth, walking to Soto Hall, taking a computer science discrete math course there, and then going to an astrophysics lecture over in Wheeler. So it was
nice.
Yeah, it was great to see the diversity there. And of course, it was my first time on the West Coast when I first went there. I grew up most of my life in Virginia, which is a very different place.
Yeah.
And seeing the diversity of the campus was an eye-opener and got me thinking about how much broader the world was.
I grew up actually right down the road from Eugene in Maryland, in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. to University of Maryland, and eventually had worked at some multimedia companies and things like that in the DC, Baltimore area. I had looked at VR, but there wasn't much happening then. And moving out to California to work for DreamWorks Animation and working on feature films. I think my first one was Shrek 2. Was out here for like 12 years working on feature animation, watching everything going. It's like constantly doing my own CG and stuff like that. And then saw that the VR was about to kick back into gear, and that there was the opportunity for us to get a studio to tell stories in VR, which is really my passion. It's like building these worlds that you can transport to, and then being able to tell stories and bring people into these worlds so they can experience these new and fantastic places.
Lovely. And do you think virtual reality is completely different from cinema? Is it going to be a new medium?
It is an absolutely completely new art form, same way that opera and the stage play were dominant art forms of the 1800s. In the 1900s and late 1800s, actually, in the early 1900s, this little thing called film and cinema emerged, right? And it is a new language, it's a new way in which to tell a story, and there's a new artistic grammar attached to it. And especially since my father's an opera singer, I'm very, very well aware, even from a young age, that art forms change, but that they do take long periods of time, right? So, 100 years ago was when we had this last transformation. And for a lot of my life, I've been wondering, what is that next step? And I truly believe, and I think all of us here do, which is why we do what we do every day, that VR and AR is that next step. I think there's very little doubt about that for us.
And you mentioned, I think, on your website that VR is kind of like a half-baked pie or something like that, and that everyone needs to really contribute to baking this pie. Can you explain this a little bit to our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a metaphor for saying that we're still very early on when it comes to augmented and virtual reality platforms and content. So when we think about VR, AR, right now there's a lot of interesting people in the space trying to build for this environment, but it's still very, very early. So there isn't a huge market, so to speak, right? So you don't want to, I think, and what's great about this industry is that there's so much camaraderie given how small it actually is. And I think that camaraderie is necessary, right? We all need to support each other, whether we're on the hardware side, whether it's some of my fellow content people. I think it's important to build together because otherwise, there's going to be no pie to eat, right? So we have these crumbs right now, and we need to kind of bring those together and build out this bigger pie. And Penrose is a group of sort of veterans in both VR as well as CG land, and we are dedicated to making high-quality virtual and augmented reality. Worked in various things, was an indie film director on the creative side, but also worked in tech. And I think Penrose is this great confluence of both technology as well as creativity, and I think that's true of many people on the company, particularly Jimmy and many of the other people here. Our engineers, top-notch engineers, but also are incredibly creative and are artists in their own right as well. So it's just a great group of people.